Alright, so you can see I've done it again on this roof level. Just come in, done the triple 2x8s, split all these, and then use the multi-align tool. So what we're going to do now, or what I'm going to do now, is I'm going to make a roof, and then I'm going to use attach wall on the gable ends. And even though these have all been turned into parts, the parts will follow the wall. Alright, so it turns out that Revit does not play nice with gable roofs and creating parts. It can do it on a shed or a flat roof. So your only options are either create a midpoint like this, and do half your roof, do half your roof, and then do them individually as parts. That creates issues when you're doing attached top base with the walls. So I'm not actually going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and delete this, but depending on how your layout is, you might want to give it a try. I'm going to come into our roof, and I'm going to edit this basic one, or duplicate it. I'm just going to call it generic shingles and sheathing only. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to get rid of our rigid insulation because that's where our framing would go. And all I've got now is the shingles, the membrane layer, and the sheathing. Click OK. Now I'm going to go to define slope. I'm going to pick line. Same process that was problematic before. So I'm just going to do these outside too. Now I'm going to switch my offset to just 6 inches. And I'm not going to define the slope on this end. And your roof might not be this simple. You might have more stuff going on, which we can talk about individually, how to best do your roof. But I just want to show kind of the general process. Alright, so now I got my shape. I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to come into my south number 2. You can see I'm probably, even with my rafters, not going to get here. The other thing too, like I have this in here for a closed attic. If you're going to have vaulted ceilings, you can just ditch this whole floor and just rest everything on the double top plate. So I'm going to give this a negative, I'm going to see what negative 6 inches looks like, and try and, that might be okay. Alright, so I'm going to put a beam system in here. We'll deal with insulation. Well, we don't really need to for this class. This is a structural model. So I'm going to come back to my 3D. I'm going to go to wireframe for a minute here. And I know it's not the greatest view because it gets super crowded. But I'm going to come into structure, beam. And now if I'm using 2x10s for the main rafters, I want my ridge board to be a 2x12, maybe even a 2x14 if I had it. Unfortunately, I don't. So I'm just going to say pick line, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to click tab until I get, come on, just let me get this one line. Alright, that's fine, I can't create. I know why. So I need to go to 3D snapping. Now I can pick a single line. And if we come into our south, you can see we're kind of in the wrong spot. And that's because our Z justification is bottom. So I'm going to switch from bottom to top, click apply. Nothing happened because it still thinks we're placing them. So I have to go to modify, click on it, and now I'm actually editing this one instead of deciding where to place the next one. So Revit keeps doing the last thing you did until you tell it to stop. So I'm going to say top, apply, and now that's okay, but we're cutting in here. So now I'm going to switch to move. I'm going to grab this corner and I'm going to come straight down until I touch the edge. Alright, I'm happy with that. Now we're going to put in a beam system on this side and hopefully it will fit here. And now the thing is, theoretically, because this is hosted, if I move this up, nope, didn't work. I must have missed a button. But there's a way to actually have this hosted on that ridge so that if the roof changes shape, it goes. Hopefully none of you are playing around with your roofs and changing shapes that much. I'm going to come into 3D. I'm going to go structure, beam system. And now I'm going to start by setting the work plane. I'm going to say pick a plane. And I want to come to this underside and make sure, yep, it's that whole face. No, not that edge, there we go. And now I'm going to say pick supports. I'm going to start by just picking this. So now I got one boundary. And now I can say pick lines. And I want to pick, again, the lower. Click tab, get that lower line. And now that we have one, it should automatically snap close to that. Alright, unfortunately, we want our beams going the other way. So I'm going to switch to this. Now our beams are in the right direction. Same distance. Let's make sure, yeah, we need to go up to 2x10s. And now I'm going to click OK. So you can see we've got this beam system. I'm going to come and let's check my level 14 view. Yeah, we are definitely not even close to lined up with our existing framing. So I'm going to do a move. And I'm going to bring it to the midpoint of this. Alright, so now we're closer. We still need to make a copy here. At some point we can decide to remove beam system. Let me check my south again. It's not horrible. The problem right now is if I come into my level 14 and I click on this, we're only seeing the first beam. And we're going to use cope to get all the beams coped. So I'm going to come back to my 3D for a second. I'm going to try and get the beam system. There we go. I'm going to say remove, well, let me check south again. Yeah, okay, that's good enough there. It's up to you if you want to leave this exactly as it is. I'm going to say remove system. And now, if you want these flush, we're going to have to drag them out one at a time. And do not use a line tool because what will happen is it'll just move the entire beam instead of just dragging one end. So this part's a little tedious. And if you're not doing a plumb cut, it's unnecessary. But I'm assuming most of you will be doing a closed plumb cut rafters. feel like I should have music playing, but then YouTube would block the video. Alright, and now before I forget, we're missing one rafter at the end. So I'm going to come back in here. And you can see we end here when we want to come all the way out to here. Luckily I'm still on this one, so I can just say copy. Come from this midpoint, making sure I've got the dashed line to here. Alright, so that's all of them. They come past here. I'm going to go ahead and do a right to left drag up. Hopefully that's all of them. Let me just check my filter. There should be, alright, 31 of them. That's a lot. I'm going to click OK. And before I do any coping or cutting, I'm going to go ahead and mirror them, draw axis. Alright, great. And now, whoa. What happened here? Is there some weird coping that already happened? Alright, so I want a reference plane here. I'm going to come into architecture, reference plane, and hopefully I drag these out far enough. Thank goodness I did. I'm going to call it why is it not letting me name this? Here we go. Plum 1. And then I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to come from the edge to the edge. I'm going to check the 3D view and see what happened here, because that's interesting that it trimmed them. Oh, yeah. Alright, so we're first going to cut these. I'm going to come into cut. You want to make sure multiple cut is on. You're going to click first your rafter, then your reference plane, and now you're just going to go 30 more times. Alright, so that's one side. I'm going to have to say cut again because I'm changing what I'm cutting and with what. I'm going to start over here, click here. Alright, and so these are pretty close already. I mean, if you really want to get technical with it, they should end here. Let me see what happens if I drag it. Yeah, no. So you could do a cope with this. It's not really going to show up in our plans too much, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyway. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to say cope. Again, I'm going to say multiple cut. First thing I'm going to click is this one. Second thing I'm going to click is this board. And now you can see it's got this massive cope on it. We can come in and fix that later. I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to show just this side and then I'll stop the video. Alright, so now these are all short, but if I come into the first one, you can see it's got the cope at 1 inch. We want something way smaller. If I put 0, it resets, so I'm just going to do something like 1/64 of an inch. And I'm going to do it for all. So I'm going to do a right click, come in. Right now they're all at 1 inch. I'm going to make them all 1/64 of an inch. I doubled up on the inch. So now instead of cutting in, all of them come right here. So you do the same for the other side. That would be your roof. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video here. I'll come back and show what to do with this gable end in just a minute. So before I do the gable wall video, if you wanted, you could also cope to this. Unfortunately, because our subfloor is not a beam, it won't cope to that, but you could theoretically do another cope for this and for this because they're also beams. So if you really wanted to and you broke this into parts, you could peel this back and cope your bird's mouth on this side and on this side. It's the same process as up here. I went ahead and did these, but that'll be, even if you don't do that, once you do a section cut, you can clean it up with something in the Annotate tab called a masking region, where you just draw over it to make it look like it's how you want. Alright, now I'm really going to stop.